Hey there, this is Calvin Baker with Mini Pots, and I have another flip through for you. This time it is the Silver Bayonet. This is an oldie but goodie. It's actually not that old, but it was originally published by Osprey in 21. So it is a little bit, it soon will be a little bit over 4 years old, 4.5 years old. And when it was first released, you can see not all these stains are from me. Some of these are from other, they're in part of the design of the cover. So what this is as the wars of Napoleon ravaged Europe, chaos and fear reigned. The darkness that once clung to the shadows has been emboldened. Supernatural creatures, vampires, werewolves, ghouls, and worse take advantage of the havoc, striking out at isolated farms, villages, and even military units. Most people dismiss reports of these slaughters as the rantings of madmen or lies of deserters, but a few know better. And so you create a band of soldiers, and you have been given a mission. It's a versus, but it does have some solo scenarios, and it does have solo potential. More so than is initially implied by the rules of the book, I think. And that's why I decided to pick this up and possibly play it. Actually, I'd hoped that I have a couple friends that were into miniature games, and I thought that I might get them, but that has not manifested. So it goes into the background, this sort of history, where he mentions the harvestmen, which are a behind the scenes, fey possible, magical possible force that is influencing itself into the world of at the time of Napoleon. Now, it's all fictional. It's based in history, and I don't mind that. I didn't have any miniatures, and I don't have a lot, although I have picked up several of the Napoleonic miniatures. The it is if you already have Napoleonic miniatures, you don't have to buy the separate ones from Northstar. You can use what you have. And how does he define it? Miniatures or figures are the reason most people get sucked into wargaming, especially these are toy soldiers sculpted in high level of detail and cast in metal, plastic, or resin. They come in various sizes, usually called scales. Okay, so 28 millimeter being the most popular. Northstar does a really nice set of 28 millimeter miniatures, and if you go to their website, and you can see them there. They are carried by several companies here in the United States. Badger Games, Brigade Games are two that come to mind. Um, you need a 2.5 or a 3x3 play area, and I don't think that's necessary. I think you can probably play a little bit smaller, like a 2x2, which is what I'm going to be playing on, I think, if I ever get it to the table. Some terrain appropriate, so you'd want some walls, trees, if you have any of sort of older European looking buildings or English looking. And this whole thing, because I was starting when I picked this up from nothing. I had picked up a copy of Warcry, and I saw this soon after, or it was coming out, and mentioned it to my wife. This is, it tells you how long it's been sitting on my shelf. Um, and she got it for me. I'm still very grateful for that. This is a D10 based system, and you do need 3 different colors of D10s. You need blue, red, and I dropped them on the floor, black. And you need more than just one. So I got these sets from Amazon. I'm sure a lot of you already have. And why does that matter? It's just the specific colors just for the standardization of the game. So if you go to someplace else or you're playing with someone, you can all agree, and the rules state that the red is the power die, blue is the skill die. No, I got it backwards. Blue is the power die, red is the skill, but we'll see. What does it say here? Skill die, red. Power die, blue. Black is the monster die. So you can influence the game by having a black die and using that when the monsters go to either increase their roll or decrease their roll based on what you get. You need a deck of 52 cards, although you really don't need 52 cards. All you need is closer to, because you won't use all 52. And each scenario outlined in the book will tell you what you need. You need some pencils and paper and a unit and a sheet and a measuring device. All pretty standard. It begins with, once you have that, you begin defining your group and you create your officer. And your officer is a little bit different in the sense that he has skills, which you have a list to choose from, and he also starts with an increased stat. Now, it doesn't give you an option to create a background from the books. This is created in your imagination. Look at this great artwork. So that officer is your avatar for all intents and purposes, and you will be giving your group of 7 soldiers the different skills, and you'll choose from the list here, which is coming up. You have different equipment. Some of them are standard and you understand it because it is a war game. You can understand having rifles, pistols, swords, daggers, that type of thing. He has also special, such as oil and torches, salt bags, silver shot. The idea that if you're fighting against werewolves or something magical or fey, silver or cold iron weapons would work better. Then you have your list of soldiers. This is the thing that I thought was intriguing. It's sort of asymmetrical in the sense that you have different countries and they don't have the full list of soldiers to choose from because at the time there wasn't an equivalent in the history or in the myth or the mythic stuff. So you have a damp fear when you're talking about Austria because there's not really the equivalent there in England. There's occultists in both countries, riflemen because you in Britain but not in Austria, and you see where this goes. In the subsequent books, there are added soldiers, and it has the same type of outline where not every country gets the same thing, but there are some standards that are carried over where you have like and I don't have the rule book handy, but you have like a carriage driver, and that's available to all the different soldiers or all the different countries. And that gives, so there's some expansion already implied by this and expansion in the following books to your forces generally. I don't know if the latest one has more soldiers or not, but that's Britain is the latest book that was just published. Different soldiers, and I'm going to look here at the artillerist real quick, where it says the different skills that they have: the speed, melee, accuracy, defense, courage, health, recruitment. Recruitment is how much each soldier costs off of a base 100, and then you have to buy additional equipment. Your officer does not have very much, and so you're spending quite a bit of money on your officer and his soldiers. Plus, you may want to get a few things extra. So, as you can see here, if you get the artillerist, he costs 10. You only have 100, which I've not said until this point, 100 points to buy your team with. And he has a specific skill called the artillerist, and that's defined later on in the book. You have here the Champion of Faith, which is only available to Russia and Spain. So it has some, you don't know really what you're going up against. And I think that's sort of cool. And it can be a little bit more flexible. I say flexible. I like working within boundaries to a certain degree, and so these boundaries of having a country work for me, but you can make it more flexible where you can get, for your story of your game, you can, and he outlines this somewhere in here where it says that you can choose different from different countries, because at the time you did have, if a group of English soldiers were in France, they may have been aided by someone from a different country to achieve their goals. So this is your junior officer. You can choose him. He's expensive, 22 versus the 10 of the artillerist. And I think but he has a choice of getting a skill comparable to your officer, and that is beneficial. The skills are special features that each of the people have, each of your members of your unit have, and they can give advantages to your team. It keeps on going. So you have supernatural investigator, you have a veteran monster hunter, you have the occultist, there's the veteran, and of course the monster hunter. And you've seen this picture before. If you have looked at anything, I'm assuming that you are looking at this because you are interested in the Silver Bayonet, or you have already participated, so you want to just get someone else's perspective. And maybe I'm wrong there. I apologize if I am. Playing the game goes over the basic setting up the table, the terrain. You don't really want clear shots, but that's sort of a common thing for games, war games, clue markers, what you need. And so your guys will be marching around on the board, and they will come across something, a marker, and they can investigate it. And once they investigate it, you flip a card because you've taken the appropriate cards out, and it tells you what it is. And I'll go over a scenario so you have an idea of what I'm referring to. Then you have checks, where it may take a certain check to do certain things. You have a occultist or a spiritual, I forget the name. Of course, now I would do that to myself. Supernatural investigator, they have the ability to do something specific, and it requires a check. So you'd roll your 2d10, the blue and the red, add them together, and that's your target number. And once you have gotten over that with any pluses that your character may have, they win or they don't. And if they don't, they've used their turn. The outlines the turns, initiative phase, primary phase. Now, I have not really paid attention to it as a two-player game, but it is a two-player game in the sense that you have the primary who wins the initiative and the other player secondary, and it does something where half the members of the team go in the first turn of the primary, and then there's then there's the monster phase, and then the second player goes, then there's the other half of the characters that the initiative winning get a chance to go. And I think that's modified during solo play, where it's half go, monsters go, then the rest of the team goes. But we'll possibly remember to verify that. You have the chance for unexpected events and unexpected encounters. So you can have different things happening. So an event, you roll a d10, so that's something powerful enchantment. Whenever a figure is activated this turn, they must make a courage check. If they fail, they may not move or attack to make a shoot action this turn. So it's just so creepy out there. Your soldiers are getting paralyzed or with fear or apprehension to move. Each turn, every figure on the table will activate exactly once. Whenever a figure is activated, it may move or take one other action, such as shoot, reload, investigate. So you can only move once, then you get the other two things. Then there's something about movement. Sprint, where you roll additional die to move an additional so many inches. And it's outlined here. To sprint, the player should make a sprint check. If the result of sprint check is 11 or higher, the figure make another move of 4 inches. The sprint check is 10 or lower, the may make another move up to 2 inches. So you still move further than your base 6 inches. Now there is a cavalry unit which moves further, and you should have a horse monster, or a figure with a mounted figure. And if you can manage it, having a unmounted figure that looks exactly like the one that's on the horse, and that way you are close enough to it. So there's how to handle different terrain. Being forced to attack, that's because an opponent has moved close enough to you or has moved into your 1 inch of your miniatures, so you have to attack him. Jumping, falling, all the basic tabletop gaming types of movement. He defines how to investigate a clue marker, loading and reloading. Of course, this is during the time of Napoleon. You had the musket or the blunderbuss or equivalent thereof weapons, and with that in mind, you will have to reload. They're a single shot. You have to reload after each shot, so you sort of need your little puffs of either smoke or cotton. He defines to show that they fired, and then you would remove it after they reloaded. The melee, the fatigue and distraction, you can be in the heat of the battle for such a long time where your character begins to get exhausted, and that's where the fatigue. And there's a way to recover from that. It gives great examples of everything in this book, of the melee, of the shooting, and gives examples of cover. There's also critical hits, where you can wipe out your guy or the opponent off the table. Cavalry, this is where he talks about having a horse on the board. They have no other effect on the game other than movement. So that's sort of your quick deploy troop, where you would have the cavalry run forward, take the objective or the clue, and then dismount. Terror checks, because you are firing or fighting unusual things. This is where he defines the number of dice. So you at least, to start the game, each team will start with at least 2 power die, 2 skill die, and 1 monster die. This is affected by possible skills that your officer has gained or the various teammates, your characters in your pool of soldiers may have. Rerolls negate damage, all the effects of the dice. Then he defines what monster dice are and how to use them. And this is a die that you have that when if you're playing head on or versus, you could use it to modify the monster to make the attack. It missed the first time. Well, you want to give one of your monster die to the monster at that point to attack your opponent and possibly do damage to them. Or if they're attacking you, they hit, you want to use your monster die to make it so they miss, if possible. Gives monster actions, and it gives a very simple flow chart here, I guess is the right term, of what the monster can do. And this is a sort of a procedural, simplified procedural, and this is a picture of one of the Silver Bayonet goblins. You can see where he's sort of wearing the modern robe garb, but he has over here a bayonet. So, does the monster have an unloaded projectile weapon? Yes, he'll try to fire. Or reload. If it's unloaded, I guess he's going to reload it. If he has a loaded and he's within range, he'll try to shoot. If not, he'll try to move to be within range. Then his line of sight. And then he goes over how to end the game. Most of these, I think, goes over the definition of the game campaign. Injury, madness, you are fighting against some weird stuff. So you will have the chance of your guys suffering from madness. This keeps on going. This is permanent injury. So your soldiers can be taken out of action but they can be affected. So you have an arm wound, -1 to their melee stat. Shakes, -1 to their shooting stats. Then it gives experience and how you can advance and what you get when you advance. And then your whole team starts at a certain tier level. As each of your guys get more and more experience, you keep on going up to tier level. So it sort of has a nice way of balancing the game out if you are doing a versus. And if you go against a higher tier team, how that can affect the game play. He gives optional rules for if they're really extremely different. One's really high in tier level, one's really low. Scenarios. Now, this is sort of after the appetizer. This is the meat of potatoes. After you've gotten everything together, you're ready to play. And so you have the investigation, the reference, the troll bridge, confirmed kill, sunken treasure, haunted ruins, last stand, Luke Garu surprise, infested monastery, ship in the fog. So it covers a little bit of everything, but he goes over the definitions here on what each scenario entails and what the team gets. If it gets anything, he also has a reward section. And so this is a basic scenario. Scenario 1, the investigation. He gives a history of, or a fictional setting, the atmosphere of the game, what you need for setup. The entire nature of the terrain is the scenario is unimportant. So anything you have, small farm makes a good setting. Small farm makes a good setting. So you can use, if you have any fields or appropriate field-like things, you can have a farm or a barn or some equivalent thereof. And on a small table, you can have 1 or 2 buildings, and that's going to take up a lot of space, plus some road with walls, bushes, trees. So then this is where an example of the clue tokens, or clue, you have your little token here, your glass bead or your red wood that you stole from your game of whatever, and you pick it up, then you draw from a small stack of cards. So if you get an ace of diamonds, you get a hobgoblin, and the hobgoblin is played within 6 inches of the center point. King of diamonds, queen of diamonds, etc. And these are the cards that you would have in your stack. You would so to remove them from the deck of cards. Then he gives a rewards section where you would get experience, and if someone gets 2 clue markers, they get 2 experience points instead of just 1. If they kill a hobgoblin, they get 1 experience points. And you could do this where it's all pooled. It's your game after all, or you and your partner's game, and you have it pooled together. Then you can divvy up how you like, but you want everyone to eventually begin getting up in level. Then he goes over different scenarios. And then I wanted to look at, he goes over the idea of creating your own scenarios and playing it. Then he gives a solo play and how to do it and how it works different than. So I was right. There is a player phase, monster phase, and another player phase. So and what die your character starts with. So they don't start with monster dice unless your officer has some sort of advantage where he starts with a monster dice. Then it has a few solo scenarios in here. Most of the books have solo scenarios. But I hope that you can see how this would work generally with some of the tables in here. You could procedurally generate a scenario. The only disadvantage I see is that it doesn't have a terrain list, or a interference. Well, it has unexpected monsters, so you could have some of that, but suppose you want a group of French soldiers or conflicting British soldiers marching across the. So that's the only, but you could create that yourself. Then he has the monster list, and it in this initial book, it is quite extensive. You have from bandits, changelings, cultists, demons, ghouls, goblins, hobgoblins, living scarecrow, possessed, pixies, trolls, revenant, vampire bat, werewolf. So you have a whole list of monsters ready to go. And then he defines the special attributes. And these are things that if you are when you're creating your officer, you get a choice of 2. The figure is, I believe, this is from memory, and I haven't played the game, but I would love to. The figure is skilled in the construction and demolition of battlefield structures, such as bridges and fortifications. This includes knowledge of how to employ gunpowder as an explosive. Specific use of this attribute will be noted in a given scenario. So that's sort of basically worthless unless the scenario calls for it. Combat rider, again, that's with the horse. And expert climber, inspiring, a little bit all allied, a little bit more versatile for you as when you're creating your leader. Inspiring, all allied figures within 6 inches line of sight of this figure receive +1 to all courage tests, and may never receive more than +1 to courage tests from inspiring. Okay. Master of cover, indefatigable, where you don't suffer from fatigue. Nimble, where you don't suffer effects of negative terrain. So part of this being a miniatures game are the wonderful line. Now, these are all from Northstar. So this is in the Canada book. Ash Barker introduces a Harvestman assassin and a Harvestman agent. You have, from this book, the Hobgoblins. You could use your own miniatures, obviously. You have sharks in the Canada book, I believe. You have in the I want to say Carpathians, but that's maybe the wrong. You have these strange vampiric dudes, but you have skeletons also. You also have the reverence or zombies. So it covers a nice spectrum of miniatures. My Living Scarecrow are one of them. Werewolf. And this is a Reaper miniature, so not trying to, if you go to their website, you're looking for that guy, you won't find him there. You have your Norman Knight, Undead Knight. And I think it's just anyway. So it has a nice, as a game, this has a great versatility of using all the different miniatures and imposing some weirdness in the world as your team is going through it. And I don't mind that. I think that's cool. I think that's that just makes this game a little bit more for me in the sense that it gives, I don't always want to be fighting against some bandits or deserted soldiers. I want to fight some weirdness. And it's a true sense of good versus evil in that respect. I'm sure there's going to be situations where you could say, well, how do you know this? You know, they're just following their nature, whatever. But that's a little bit more philosophical than I care to go in this. This is a game I want to play it for getting some cool minis on the board and being able to play something different, something that you haven't possibly seen before, but if you have, hopefully you'll get a different take on the game from what my review is. But thank you very much for watching. If you made it through this far, I appreciate it. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to see future content. And hey, happy gaming. Have a great week. Thank you.